What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Podcast coming at you. This week's guest is none other than the good doctor, Bryan Snyder, associate head coach over at Nebraska, coming off a season where they got a trophy. They got a trophy the year before. He talks to us a lot about what they're doing despite all the NIL and transfer portal stuff, how they're developing athletes. And he gives us an incredible amount of insight on their mindset on developing athletes and taking days off. All that and more coming at you on the podcast. Don't go nowhere. Hey, everyone knows that wrestling is 90% mental. We're super excited to have partnered with Wrestling Mindset, the #1 wrestling specific mindset program in the world. Make sure to sign up at wrestlingmindset.com using promo code Athletor25 for a $500 discount. Stop underperforming and losing to guys that you should beat. Athletor Podcast coming back at you. The good doctor, Bryan Snyder, on the line. First of all, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for staying on me. I was after NCAAs, it gets it's hectic. It's less routine, but yeah, I knew we could make it work. So I'm happy to be here.
Good. Well, it's funny because what people don't know is like this conversation has been happening since before the season's ended, right? Yeah. And then I saw you at the opener. I'm like, I'm gonna get you, and you're like, stay on me, and that was it. Yeah. That was the most we interacted in person in probably a year.
Well, the crazy stuff too is it's less routine. So it's like, is my Monday and Tuesday? I'm like, well, if we don't have this recruit come in, well, he came in, and like a lot of it at this time of the year it's just some of that stuff just pops up and it's like, boom, you got to go do it,
Hey, so which do you rather though? So my life is so beautifully regimented right now, with the exception of travel days, right? And that kind of stuff. So if I'm not on the road, I know what time I get up. I know what time I work. I know, which would you rather? Because there's some beauty in chaos too.
Yeah, I can do both. It's kind of nice because the season is so orderly, right? We know who we're wrestling. I mean, there's always some hiccups and a little bit of that, but everything is pretty much similar. It's the postseason where it's really the recruiting and the hustle of the portal and the deals happen like that now, especially for people in the portal. They don't take long, and so a lot of it is just a lot of hustle. And I don't know which one I like better. I'm able to operate within both of them, and they're just different for sure.
Hey, you said they don't take long. Why do you think that is, Bryan Snyder?
Well, you and I both know that. You and I both know that. One, most of these deals are done before anyone even goes in the portal, right?
100%.
And then the other part of it is
human contact is the funniest freaking thing in the world to me. It is the funniest freaking thing in the world. It's like what does that mean? That means you know where you're going. Stop. Right. Nonsense.
And then the other thing is it doesn't go fast because people, it's not like you're recruiting juniors and you got the summer and then the fall to bring them onto campus and everyone's kind of pushing out their offers. I mean, it's happening. It's like, hey, listen, we need a 49-pounder. You're our guy. Here's the offer. And I got to know because this other guy's knocking down my door, And so it's just bam, bam, bam. It's very quick.
Can you explain to me what those meetings are like with Manning? Do you just call him and be like, hey, this guy's in the portal. We gotta do something or don't, but we gotta.
First of all, Manning is a maniac. He never gets tired. We've been in meetings and I'd be like, hey, you should see this kid. And he just out the door and goes, right?
Really?
He's recruiting right now after the open. Or after the trials. He didn't come back with us. He's on the road. So yeah, it happens all the time. And Manning's built for it because hey, I'm going to find a flight. We were down, we were neck and neck down with one recruit and It was Sunday. It was Master Sunday. And I'm like, well, you got to go see him. I said, we have to go see him. He's like, I'm gonna get on a flight tonight. And he just, boom, go. You know,
Fun.
I've been with him in the office, and we've been, like I said, talking about a guy, and he's like, I'm just gonna go. And he'll get in the car and he'll just call Carrie, his wife, and be like, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. So yeah.
What kind of life I want to live, man.
Yeah.
I just don't. You hear these stories, and like, here's the thing, right? Like, you guys are doing it at a real high level and you're doing it differently. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about. You're not buying every athlete and just hand them a red singlet.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yep.
You're developing athletes. Obviously, this is a conscious decision. It's not like Nebraska doesn't have any money, right? Like, it's a stupid thing to say.
Yep.
You could be competitive in some of these arms races that go on with NIL. When this all started to kind of blossom into what it is now, what was the conversation like with the administration, with Manning? What was it like? How much input did you have? What were those conversations like?
Hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? We at AthletorLive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Caden Henshaw. If you don't know who Caden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to athletorlive.com/Caden and we'll give you the first module completely free.
Well, you know, we know it's a slippery slope, right? And so one, we wanted to do it on some foundational principles. It's like, hey, listen, we're going to set a structure here for our guys that develop in our program, and we're going to pay them this for this amount of NIL for this type of performance. And we just know that one, it's the right thing to do, and it helps a lot because you self-select the right type of guys to come into the program that want to earn it, right? And say like, hey, listen, I can't pay you more than that because I don't pay my guys that, right? So I think a lot of people respect that too when we tell them that, like, hey, we're not going to break our structure our NIL structure to bring you in because I got a guy in Brock Hardy and Antrell Taylor that we're paying such and such, right? And they earned it. They developed in our program. And so that's what we want to do. We wanted to make it a developmental model, right? So then our NIL isn't to recruit over the guys we have in the program. It's to retain and reward the guys that we believe in that are in our program, right? And so that's it. It's a very simple model. We want to reward and retain the guys that develop at Nebraska. And
do you think, well, hold on. Do you think that structure will be the bar moving forward, especially with a lot of this rev share that's coming down the pipe?
Yes, I do. For us, it will be. Now, this House settlement still hasn't been signed, and there's a couple things that have gone on. One is the House settlement. The other thing is Deloitte is now going to be the third party kind of clearinghouse for all NIL deals, not rev share deals. Rev share deals are different, right?
Right.
Now, Deloitte is supposed to have this third party authority to say whether so-and-so is worth this NIL deal. I don't know how that's going to work. That hasn't been sorted, but that's supposedly happening. And
This year?
Yes. Yeah. But
August or July?
I don't know. I don't know the dates on it. But for us in principle, that we're still going to operate very close to our principle of we want to reward and retain the guys that develop in Nebraska. Now we're obviously we're going to go in the portal for the weight classes that we feel like we have a need in, right? But again, get the right guy. Get the right guy that's going to develop in our program. So if you look at our transfers, we got Liam Cronin, All-American for us, never an All-American prior. Caleb
Never
Smith,
All-American before.
nope. Caleb Smith, same thing. Christian Lance. I mean, those are our three transfers in the last, I don't know, 7 years, right? I mean, the ones that have been in the lineup. And they all went from not being an All-American elsewhere to being an All-American at Nebraska. So we believe in our developmental model. We believe that if you pour your heart and soul into your student athletes, and they work their butts off, that there's still a lot of room to be had in moving the needle on your development, right? That still matters.
That seems to be a waning sentiment. Like you understand that that's not a prevailing sentiment.
And I think part of it too is, there's been a lot of hype about Nebraska wrestling since NCAA's, right? And, we were second in the country, and really we were one match last year away from being second in the country 2 years in a row, right? We just didn't finish. But I think a lot of people liked it because they saw that, right? They saw it was a bunch of guys that we developed and we recruited into our program, and Caleb Smith, who was there for 2 years, and it was guys like Minto that nobody ever heard of until he was fourth in the country,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of people recognized it, and it's what our focus is. Obviously, we're gonna always step up our NIL game, but it's always gonna be with the focus to retain and reward the guys that we have in the program first and foremost.
You said the right guy, though. What is in the recruiting process? Let's talk about the high school recruiting process first.
Yeah.
What does that right guy look like to you? Like, meaning, what are some real green flags that like go, oh, I got to get this kid because he.
Well, it's always a holistic evaluation, but what's their work ethic like? Are they blue collar? Are they disciplined? Like that's very important when you're in Mark Manning's program. Like I always say, Manning and lazy do not get along. So you got to be a worker, right? Do you love the sport? You talk to your coach, you talk to the kids, the student athletes, coaches, the people that know them. Does he love the sport, right? Or does he do it because his mom and dad want him to, right? Like, no, he's a mat rat. Like, I can't get him out of the room. I love that, right? Yeah. And how does he compete, right? Is he courageous? Like, does he go search out competition? And those are the three pillars that we talk a lot about with our team, right? Your love for the sport, putting the work in, and then when you have the time to actually the opportunity to lay your foot on the line, like it's time to let it fly. And so we look for those things, right? And so, and none of that was being ranked number one at your weight class, right? So we know that you can develop those three areas develop very well in our program, and so that's what we look for.
What would your red flags be?
The opposite of all those, right? I mean, is he lazy? Does he only wrestle a few competitions?
There aren't too many lazy kids that are high level.
Right, you're right. Yeah. A lot of it too is like we don't bring you on campus unless we feel good about you in those three areas, right? And then the campus visit is also just like, does he fit in well? Right? Like, is he a good kid? Does he have good character? Like, how does he interact with his parents? Right? That's a big one. I haven't had many people that have been kind of like, interacted badly with their parents that actually were like good, made it well, made it for over the longevity of their career. So, I mean, really, how you interact with your parents, how you treat them. I mean, are you good to them? How do you listen to them? Because again, it's going to directly translate to how you interact with your coaches, because they're both some sort of authority figure, right?
Have you ever been at an event, like a high school event, recruiting a kid, seen something that he did and go, oh, hell, oh, hell no, that's not going to work here?
Yeah, it's a little bit of just, how you, are you talking to the ref? I mean, are you blowing up afterwards? Are you blaming your coaches? How do you interact with your teammates? Like all that stuff, all that stuff matters. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the reason you go to Fargo. I mean, you go to Fargo one to be seen a little bit, but you also go there because you want to see how do they warm up, right? Like how do they interact with their coaches? What do they do when they lose? And it's not a complete deal breaker, but it's just
No.
like I said, it's all data that goes into a more holistic final decision. Like, hey, what are we willing to risk for this guy, or is he our guy? Now, you have some guys that check all the boxes, right?
Mhm.
And it's like no brainer. Okay, now what do we have to do to go get him? Um, the other thing I didn't really mention, but I alluded to it a little bit, is just resiliency. Like how do they act after a loss? Not only how do they act, but like how do they bounce like when they lose? What's their next match look like? Because that's a big deal, right? It says a lot about your character. It says a lot about your upbringing, and not many guys going undefeated in the Big Ten, right? So you're going to have to dust yourself off and go get the next best thing. And you still might not get at that tournament, and then you got to dust yourself off again and move on from Big Tens to NCAAs and try to like flip it, And we did a good job of that this year. Guys like Cam McDaniel and Christopher Minto. Minto was banged up at Big Tens. So he didn't wrestle his best there, but he wrestled really well at the NCAAs. But it's being able to flip that switch a bit.
It kind of matters a little bit more, No, I mean, not that nobody remembers the Big Ten tournament because they do, right? I mean, it gets you on the wall somewhere, but NCAA tournament is the most important 3 days of the season, right? And if you're gonna save it for then, you got to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, man. Uh, from where I'm sitting, Nebraska wrestling probably does the best job at developing young athletes out of anywhere in the country. Like just, you brought up Minto. Nobody's ever heard of him, but I could probably point to 10 of those coming out of your program over the last, you've been there since 2010 as an assistant. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And then there were ones that everyone's kind of heard of, right? Like the James Greens and the Jordan Burroughs of the world, who people don't, I don't know if they do or they don't realize. Jordan, especially, was not the number one recruit in his weight class coming out of high school. I mean, for what he turned into, I mean, we all just assumed that he was undefeated in high school and he was the ass kicker of all ass kickers, but that's not true,
Right.
right? I think he won one state title in Jersey. I think he made two finals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talk to me about what happens in your room that allows these guys to develop at such a high level.
It's not really any secret. It's just a lot of hard work. It is. It's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of belief in our guys. We spend the lion's share of our time as a coaching staff just talking about our team. What do we collectively need to get better at? And then probably even more like what does so and so need, right? Like what does Brock need? What does Ridge need? What does Antrell need? And our practices, I mean, our weeks are designed a lot like that, right? Where we do team practices and we do individual practices, and that individual practice, your personal coach and the athlete, they work on areas. You watch film, and you get to know your guy. So it's not just a workout where they're hitting high crotches, but you get to know kind of what they think about the position, but you also get to know a little bit more about their psychological profile, right? And so
Mhm.
Manning always challenges us in those individuals, like, hey, this is also where you guys get to know these guys really well, right? And so, like, what do they need to hear before their match, right? What do they need to hear, when there's 15 seconds left and they got to go get one or they're up by one. And so it's a little bit of a deep learning, deep in the relationship a bit.
Mm.
So that's it. I mean, we just work hard at trying to get our guys better. And there's things that we do as a team, non-negotiables, that we work all the time. We work every week. And then, you've seen our team wrestle. We also have a lot of diversity in wrestling styles, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of that is a credit to Manning with allowing these different styles to flourish a little bit, right? And not just painting everyone within the same box. Now,
I don't know that most programs can do that anymore, right? Like the days of Iowa just hand fighting you into the ground, gone.
Right.
The days of Oklahoma State just grabbing elbow control and hitting duck unders and high crotches, pretty much gone. And I think it's a testament to the level of athlete that has kind of gone through the roof over the last 25 years. But it's also, I think, an understanding in coaching as well. So and forgive me if I'm wrong, but you said what so-and-so needs. How do you go about developing an idea of like, okay, here's this kid, I'm gonna go back to JB just because everyone knows him and the way he wrestles. How do you go about looking at a kid like JB and go, all right, there are some deficiencies here, but here's what we really need to lean on?
So I came back during JB's senior year, so he was pretty dang polished when I got here. I can talk a little bit about his freestyle career. But I mean, what you said there's something important in what you said is like, you can't spend all the time just cleaning up the deficiencies when you can spend most of the time keeping them where they're good and getting really good at the areas that you see an opening. Like, man, if we can dial this aspect of his wrestling up, it's going to take care of all the other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got a guy that has problems with leg defense. Yeah, I just need to spend time with leg defense, but maybe I just need to get on legs more, right? So
yeah.
And that may not be the best example, but there's a lot of truth in spending time on what you're great at, right? And so you can become even better at it instead of spending all your time at trying to shore up your holes. And that's a delicate balance, right? Because you do have to spend time getting better at your deficiencies, right? But not at the expense of never working on the things you're good at, And I think during the year, you work on certain parts of that. Like you can, when competition's far away, you can take some time and just go into a deep dive of getting better in an area, right? Then there's times of the year where it's like you're basically prepping for the next thing, right? There's not many adjustments. You're just prepping for the next thing, and you still want to. But the challenge with that is you still want to have a learning mindset. Like we're not done learning new stuff yet, right? There is a time though, probably like mid-February, that's probably like, okay, nothing new, right? We're going now with what we have. Just
the hay is in the barn,
yes, the hay's in the barn.
This is who we're going with.
Now, there's a guy like Brock who, he can learn a position, within a few hours and implement it the next match, right? But again, knowing your guy a little bit, right? Some guys you can add a lot to, and some guys you just need to simplify their mind. Like this is what you need to do. And that's a big part of it, right? Like when we ask, like, knowing what our guys need, that's a big part of it, because some guys can handle that. Some guys can handle, tweaking a position right before, and other guys don't want to hear anything about it. Me, I probably didn't want to hear much about it at that time. Like let's just go with what I got. So it's as much art as it is science, trying to figure these guys out.
That's the part that is not only the scariest part of coaching to me, right? Because like I said, I like the regiment, but and I say scary, and I mean scary in a very good way, right? Like the butterflies in your stomach, the excitement, that's a good thing, right? How do you balance that? Like, because if like sometimes when I get stoked about like a position or an athlete that I'm working with or whatever, I could spend 3 hours there. That's not always conducive to their actual learning though, right? Like that's not always the best course of action, right? Like I got a girl right now that I'm working with, and she is very much a sponge. Now, she's a sponge for knowledge, and I got to know when to interject what I need to do, but she'll stay on the mat for a full day. Like for a full day, she'll stay on the mat. And I'm like, no, you got to get out of here. You got to go get some rest. So how do you deal with the idea of like, okay, here's how we're going to structure this, but at the same time, adding that creativity, adding that kind of zest for learning?
I think it's different times of the year, right? So, you know, if let's just also I'll just take a piece of the year. So like preseason, right? Like so there's a heavy focus on learning a few different positions. And this could be different from year to year with our team, right? So we'll sit down and say, we've got we've got an upperclassman heavy team, right? And so, they're good at the areas that we've been focusing on in the preseason the last few years. Like we can branch out here a little bit, you know?
Mhm.
But the preseason would be, hey, maybe we're good at this. And so now it's a little bit more of a diversified shot entry. We can be really creative here. And then, just give yourself some time to let them figure it out on their own. Because I think I'm a huge proponent in a lot of individual freedom within a structure. But I think you need to have the structure to have freedom within it. So set some parameters, show some stuff, teach more in broad principles, and then let them figure out, right? But the preseason is a good time to do that, right? And then the off season is a great time to do that too. And the off season is tricky because if you're not focused on, like I was telling the guys today, like, hey, take some time. We're gonna open spar, and then Terrell's gonna run you guys through some live. But like, make sure you have a project that you're working on, right? Because right now we have you, and but then school just got out, and now it's going to be so and so's running this camp here, and so so's going on vacation here. So I may not, we may not cross paths. You may not have a coach standing over top of you for 2 months. Like, what project is it that you're getting better at, that you're working on? I think anytime you can throw the ball back into the athlete's court and ask them to take an active role in their own development, it's always going to move the needle in the long run. Even if on the short end of it, they struggle a little bit and they fumble. If you keep throwing it back to them, hey, you got to figure this out, right? I'm here to help. I'm here as a resource. That person becomes really good, and then they get addicted to mastery.
Yeah, and it's the ownership of their success, I would gather, that really becomes important.
And I wouldn't even say their success. I would say I would really focus on just their development, right? They have to own it, right? And we're there to guide them, and we're there to help them along the way. But we can't. I mean, our sport more than anyone else, we can't wrestle for our guys. As much ownership and independence that you can throw at your team, the better, right?
Mm.
And it can't only be them, right? There has to be structure, there has to be principles, but if they take them and they embody them and they work within them and they expand them and they challenge them, and then it's like, okay, now you got something really cool going on, right? Instead of a group of guys just comes in and goes, coach, what are we doing today? Okay, we're doing this. How do I do it? Okay. All right. How do I finish it? Right? I don't know.
Figure it out. Figure it out. Figure it out. Figure it out. Dude, the amount of times that phrase gets thrown around my house, forget about the wrestling room. The amount of time that term gets thrown around my house, my wife's like, is that like, you should get that tattooed on your ass. Like figure it out. I don't know. Like, but all right. So
there's just one thing. So, but and there's research that supports this, and we've all felt it, like anecdotally, but like when you stumble on a problem and you figure it out, your mastery of figuring it out, of fixing it, is like, boom, it's just quick. Instead of someone pointing it out and saying, hey, here's where you went wrong. But when you finally go, oh, this is where I'm messing up, I got to do this. And like, it takes out the middleman, right? And it's just like, oh, there. So you approach the problem, you ran into the problem on your own, you troubleshooted it, you figured it out, and you fixed it, and it's no longer a problem. But you got to prep them. You got to prep guys to do that. Sometimes they don't do that. They just go until a coach.
Okay, so that was kind of where I was going next. That was where I was going next, Bryan, because this is really I think the most valuable part of the conversation. When they're not figuring it out and and it's not for a lack of trying. Okay, it's not for a lack of trying. It's not a lack of effort. It is sometimes their competitive nature gets in the way. Sometimes their hard-headedness gets in the way. How do you negatively reinforce the fact that they're not picking up on the mistakes that they're making, that they're simply making the same mistake over and over and over? How do you negatively reinforce that while at the same time encouraging them to kind of think for themselves?
I think if they're not seeing it, then you have to. There's a couple of things. One, the first thing I would do is this. I would say, hey, let's watch some film, right? You see what you got going on here, and that can just be. Sometimes I just video if it's a drill. I'll just take my phone and just video some clips and practice in an individual workout and show them what they're doing wrong, and then if they did it right once, like say here's where you had it right. And I think you can move the needle a lot just by doing that.
Sure, never thought to do that. That's goofy.
Yeah.
As much as I carry a freaking camera around with me, it never occurred to me to actually video them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, that's part of it is just saying, hey, and then let's watch it together. You see this. I also like to, like when we do in our individual workouts, I like to grab guys that are good at feedback, right? So there's guys on our team that when we do individual workouts, especially when the lineup is set and the guy is the guy, I grab workout partners that are very good coaches. They have quick feedback loops on, hey, I feel this, right? When you did it this way, I feel this. When you do it the other way, I'm missing it, right? And I encourage that dialogue. And so there's a guy like Hayden Mills, who was our backup 33 pounder last year from Kansas guy who we absolutely love, our lifter of the year this year, by the way. I used him for Van D because he would jump in before me a lot of times, you know? So film is good. You know, a lot of when you recognize that they're just being hard-headed and they're just only going one way, it's like, then it's the talk like, hey, you know, there's a difference between being hard-headed and hard-nosed. Like you're being a hardhead right now. Like you need to step back, get out of your way. And some of it may just be, Mike, that, you know, they just might need a freaking break. You know, because that is a question that you have to ask yourself as a coach. Like, where are they at? Are they just at an end of their training cycle? They just need a break, you know? And sometimes that is, you know, you just get to the point where you're like, you've been in it and you've been trying and it's just frustrating. And sometimes the best thing to do is just walk away from it, right? Even for a few days.
Okay, so like a week, like are you talking like a week usually? It resets the calibration?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like maybe if it's the summer, like we just kick Cam McDaniel out of the room because he never is not in the room, right? And so Manning and Tervel's like, you gotta go. And then he just went to the bike instead of getting out of the room because he's that good, right? He'll never leave. You know, if it's the summer, you can give him like, hey, listen, I don't want to see you for a week or two, right? Just go spend some time. Brock wanted to work out with me the Wednesday after NCAA's. I'm like, no, go on vacation, right? Like you need it. If it's during the season, it's probably a weekend, you know, a few days. You know, we gave Liam Cronin 1 day a week his senior year because he was old man Cronin, 7th year. You know, if he went too many days in a row live, he would, you know, his back would act up. And so we just said, we have 2 days that we usually go hard a week. Like we're gonna give you one of those days off, and you just pick what you want to do. And it was freaking awesome. And so he did active recovery. He swam, and then when competition day came, he was the hardest wrestling, off the whistle, like ready to go, in shape. Trelly at the end of the year this year, like he's another one he's in the room all the time. And Manny was like, hey, I don't want to see you need the weekend off. Like, go get out of here. And he's such a hard worker, but he also trusts his coaches so much. When we tell him, he just says, okay, all right, I need it off. And that's the reset. Because a competitor, when you give a competitor time off the mat, I know we're moving away from the learning part of it, but when you give a competitor time off the mat, they just get hungrier, And so it's almost like a win-win because they can, especially if they don't have a weight problem, right? If they can actually take a few days off leading up to competition and just kind of rest, and it also can get them to be like, dang, I'm hungry. Now you got to have, that, what I've written about this before and I thought a lot about it, but you got to have the courage to rest. And in our sport where we always feel like you need to be doing something, it's like Gable's thing is like, I forget what the exact quote is, but it's like, I got to always be outworking my competition. If they're doing something, I got to be doing more. And so sometimes it's like a day off is frowned upon. Well, we know now that if you can only do that for so long and then you have diminishing returns, right? So there is a courage in being able to say, hey, I need a couple of days off, right? I'm good. I need a couple of days off. I can't keep going down the same path. And you know it too. Like you've had those guys in your program that all they do is this, and they keep working and they keep working. And you tell them to take a day off, and they don't do it. But then when it comes time to compete, they shrink a little bit, right? Because it's actually, I've talked about this a lot before, but like I think the hard work is actually the easy part, right? It's easy to work hard.
Absolutely. I know that sounds stupid to a lot of people, but it is. No. It's like I can bang my head against the wall all day. It's easy.
The really tough thing is having the courage to lay it on the line when it's just you and somebody else.
Yeah. And knowing that what goes into that might not be banging your head against the wall, right?
Exactly.
Not going for those 3, 7, 8 mile runs. Maybe you don't need that. Maybe call me crazy. Like there's a lot of stuff in our sport that is still, I don't see how running a marathon helps us. I really don't.
No. So I use this. It's funny that you say that. So I use myself as an example of what not to do because I had it in my mind. Here's what we do, right? We connect our work with deserving to win, right? If we work this hard, we deserve to win. That only works sometimes, right? Because you got to earn you got to earn the wins, right? So, but the night before, so Pennsylvania, back in my day, 5 regional champs, and you got put in a bracket. It wasn't seeded, so that meant into the state bracket. 5 regional champs went into the state championship bracket, meaning that 2 regional champs had to wrestle each other in the quarters, right? So it just happens that I was ranked number 1 in the state, and he was ranked number 2 in the state. Just so happened that we ended up in the quarter bracket together. And I'm sitting there in my hotel room in Hershey, PA, the night before the match, and I'm going, did I do enough to win this match? And I said, I don't know. So at midnight, I went for a 3-mile run. Okay. Now, how dumb is that? How dumb is that?
No.
Right? And the next day, I'm like, I can barely move on the mat. And I got a takedown with like 11 seconds to go up by 1. And then we went out of bounds. And I remember being 4 seconds on the clock. And I'm moving, how am I going to ride this guy? I mean, my mind was all over the place. I won the match, right? I won the match, but I did not compete well. But the important part of the story is what sort of thought process, what sort of mental models are going on in my head for that to be the question that I'm asking myself the night before. So I did not have the courage to rest. I wanted my work outside of the match to make the match easy for me. And that's the hard part. Like, and that's the mental flip that we talk a lot about our guys with. Like, I got this from Robert Kokish. We were just asking some people, like, what do you think about before your match? So he's like, I go back on my work, not because I think it's going to be an easy match, because I want it to be easy. He's like, I know I'm about to be in a dogfight. That's why I work really hard. So when I go back, my pre-match talk is, I'm ready for this dog. I work really hard because I'm ready for the fight. Not to make it easy, but to know that you're going to be a fight, right? And JB, all of JB's success, he always knew that all of his work just prepared him for the fight. It wasn't going to make it easy. Just prepared him for a dog fight. And that's the
It's
mentality.
completely the opposite. It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. And you think, and I never had that. I thought a lot about this, within the last 10 years. But when I was in high school, it was like, I wish someone would have told me. I wish I would have had a roommate or would have had a coach. And I went to ask him and be like, "Hey, you need to you need to wrap your head around getting ready to fight this guy tomorrow. The work is done. If you go for a run, you're a coward." That's what I needed to do. But I'm having this conversation with myself in my head. But I make fun of it, but it's very real. You know this, right? This is
Not only is it real, it's prevailing. And
yeah,
you brought up Gable, and here's the thing. Lee Roper and I are very close, and about 15 years ago, I wrote something that I was very proud of, and I'm glad it never saw the light of day. Okay, because I hesitate to even bring it up because just saying it might get some good backlash, but the mindset that Gable set as the standard is one of a sociopath. Okay, it's one that was built on major trauma. Okay, and people don't really like to talk about that very often. But the problem is that it worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
And him alone, because when he was coaching, he didn't have the exact model that he took for himself and imply it upon every single athlete that he coached. Now, some of them, yes, the Brands brothers would be able to run through the wall, but that was the exception, not the norm. Because if he trained Joe Williams the same way, that's not going to be the same outcome.
Right.
Okay. So that said, there was all these high school coaches in the 80s and 90s that bastardize this model set forth by a sociopathic mindset, and it probably didn't do us very much good. It probably did not do you and I very much good at all. And so Lee Roper, I sent it to him. And I was going to put this up on my site. I was ready to go. It was I read it 15 million times. He's like, "Don't you dare put that out." He's like, "Don't you dare put that out. That'd be the worst thing that ever happens to you." I'm like, "You might be right."
Yeah, it's funny that the whole, I mean, that was my high school coach. That was Mr. Powell. Like, never a day off. Like, our day off was, we met at Jacobsburg Park and went for a run, and so it's wild. It's wild. I actually think, we do it a lot differently. I think everyone's kind of a lot of people have figured it out, but like the rest part is so crucial, right? And just thinking about Manning's evolution since I was an athlete for him, like we used to run all the time, 400s, 800s, 200s. It was brutal. We don't touch a track anymore. We don't, because to be honest with you, you build your base level of conditioning by drilling really freaking hard, wrestling hard, and you have a good strength and conditioning coach, right? That gets you right in the off season and maintains you during the season, right? But why would I go run and mess up my lower back and my hamstrings just because, and especially to do it at 6? I mean, this is the other thing too. Like, the sport is tough enough. To get up and do something at 6 a.m. It's just, I mean, it's like,
there's no sun out.
We're Spartan enough. Like, do we have to make it so? Is it not supposed to be fun? Like, nothing. It doesn't. I mean, it's hard enough, right? It's like. It's also why I love. I was
training this fighter once. You got to hear me out. I was training this fighter, and his dad was actually really good at video work, right? So they came up with this video like as the kid was going into his championship fight. It was like a local promotion, but his dad does the turning the the snooze alarm off at 4 a.m. and road work at 6 a.m. And he looks at me, he's like, "That's pretty good, right?" I'm like, "That's stupid. That's just dumb,
Yeah.
dude. I don't know what to tell you." That's ridiculous. It's so
And,
dumb.
like, just in all the years I spent with, the world team when Jordan and James were on the teams, like, nobody was doing that stuff. Nobody was
No.
running. I mean, everyone was worried, really focused on that. I mean, they trained hard, right? They trained really hard. They're the best in the world, right? But they weren't doing it at 6. There's a lot of time in the day. You can get 2 days in if you go at 9 and 3,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but so I learned from my mistakes, and that's also that's another very prevalent message that we rehearse throughout our year, right? Is like, we talk a lot about courage. We talk a lot about why we put the work in. Like, remember, like, these practices are hard, not to make the match easy, but we're there. We're trying to prepare you for a dogfight. Like, our season's tough, our schedule's tough. Um, and just make sure you don't, just honest conversations with the guys about what they're going into, how they're going to feel, how to deal with your emotions. And then, let it fly. And if you don't get what you
So
want, then get back to work.
sure. Now you said you've learned from your mistakes, but here's and this will be probably, we're butting up on time now. So here's the last thing. Have you learned from your mistakes? Because here's the thing. You're allowing your athletes to learn from your mistakes as an athlete. But let me ask you this. Do you take that same sentiment, the courage to take a day off, and bring it into coaching? Because sometimes there's a mental fatigue that takes place that I got to get off the mat. I'm like, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not even mat, right? Like, for me, it's like, the screen. I got to get off my computer. There's no reason I'm literally spinning my tires right now.
Yeah.
Do you, having Manning as a workhorse type mentor, do you take that same philosophy into coaching?
Yes, I do. I don't say no enough in the wrestling room. I usually go in the wrestling room, I'm not going to wrestle today. And then, like, today, I wasn't going to wrestle. And then I had to wrestle with Peyton. So I probably don't say no enough in the wrestling room. But, Manning is really good. And that, if I need a day, if we need a day for here, this or that, like, he's really good about it. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that's happened to me and changed my perspective on this and just changed my livelihood, and it's just my kids, you know?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I want to be there for, I enjoy, we work out in the morning. So our team practices in the morning, which is awesome. Which is like, if you
Mhm.
have kid stuff going on in the afternoon, Manning's like, hey, he realized, like, me, Tervel, and James, we all have young kids. If you got stuff
Mhm.
going on in the afternoon, you need to get your kids, you need to get them to baseball practice, wrestling practice. Like, that's one of the reasons we work out in the morning. So it's great. So that right there is just rejuvenative enough of me. And like, I don't need more than a day here or there. I kind of, get up to speed pretty quick and get rejuvenated pretty quick. Um, but yeah, I realize, I know that there's an importance in balancing that, right? Because you can only go so hard for so long. And
Mhm.
so you read it. I mean, I think if you're actually into being productive, you do it because the research shows that if you work hard and you take some breaks, then it's gonna make you come back fresher, right? And you can only burn the candle at both ends for so long until you have those diminishing returns, and you're no longer as effective as you would be if you took a freaking day off.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I can't
I
speak for Manning.
100%.
I can't speak for Manning.
John tells me his hair is white for a reason. You got a full head of hair.
It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you hear about some of these guys, and the Rob Coles of the world. Like, Rob does not have an off switch. I am convinced that he is a robot. I am convinced that he's a robot. The dude never, never stops. Like, he's unreal. Like, and there's a bunch of them like that. There really are, dude. Like, there are guys. Like, think about, you know, Rob is not, and I'm using Rob as an example, but Rob is not a young dude, right? And to build another program, to build
Yeah.
no, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, man. Our jobs, head coach jobs, especially in the landscape of you know, RTCs, and we've been with that for, about 15 years, but um the the new challenge of NIL, like you have to wear so many different hats, and you never know when you got to take one off and put one on, right? And Manning does it all without ever missing a day in the room. Like he's like that's what his love is, to be in the room. You know,
Sure.
I know a lot of these other guys, they do a lot of the program building outside the room, and they're not as heavy in the room, especially in the off season. No, that's
Mhm.
exactly where Manning wants to be. He wants to get everything done so he can get back to the room. You know, um, that's a big part of the reason that we develop the way we do. You know, but the
I would
challenge the
mentor.
challenge put forth to wrestling coaches in particular is tough, and they have to be wired like that. They almost have to be, the founder of a startup. They got to be able to put on a bunch of different hats and raise money and build culture. Right. I mean, that's it. Those two things
Yeah,
take a lot of time.
yeah, that's a lot of time. That said, last question before we get to our sprint. Do you want to be a NCAA head coach one day? Because after all this said, boy, it's not easy.
Yeah, I love it. I've been, one of the good things is Manning has been very inclusive with me in a lot of the high level stuff, like, right, a lot of the decision making, a lot of the stuff that goes on with administration, fundraising, so I know what it takes. Yeah, and that's the plan. I love what I'm doing though. I love what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. And I'm learning a lot along the way.
Yeah, I believe that. All right, Joel Shaw, anything before we get to our sprint, brother? The boy says, bring it home. Bring it home. All right. Don't think too much about these. Just fire away. Here you go.
Yeah.
What's the greatest wrestling shoe of all time?
The Kendall Cross with the big white Adidas stripes.
Yeah, the Ada Stars. I still got
Yeah,
a pair. I don't have the
yeah.
black pair. I have the white pair.
I
My
wore the
son,
black. I had the blacks.
so good. They're such great shoes. My
Yeah.
son knows that there is one pair of shoes that he is not welcome to use in my closet, and it is those. Okay, those things have about three more goes left in them, and they're about done. And I'm going to save them for his ass too. Watch. Okay. Now, if you all the stuff that we talked about is, and I want to kind of steer more towards the mental aspect of sports and training. Is there a book that you can recommend to young coaches out there that kind of gives them some insight onto that, being courageous and taking a day off and stuff like that?
There's not. I mean, they don't talk a lot about it. There's a little bit about it in Peak Performance. I think that's actually where I saw the actual words "courage to rest." Um,
Mhm.
I think Inner Excellence is got a lot of buzz lately. Because of my ego was reading it on the sideline. I still think that's a very good book. Mind Gym is also a really good book. I like
I
Mind Gym a
have that
lot
one.
because it's you can piece it up, right? You can just read one chapter. They're all kind of like, self-contained, and you can try to look at it. You can read it throughout the year. Um, yeah,
There
yeah,
it is.
that's it right there. Good book. Um, that's some good mindset stuff. I like Ben's book. I think Ben's book is really good.
Okay,
The one he wrote with what's it called? It's called Extreme Balance.
there it
Yeah.
is.
Yep. Yep. So I just recently read Ben's book and was able to talk with him about it. I think that's a very good book, and I like it because you don't get a book that is written from the mindset of a combat sport. Those are some recent ones that I read. I read Mind Gym a long time ago, but yeah, those are some ones that come to mind.
Great, beautiful. Okay, you only get four. They got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
JB, John Smith, Kale. Oh my God, Dave Schultz.
Oh,
And
I like that one.
And I left off Bruce, who's like maybe the most accomplished. So
Sure. But again, we talk about this a lot, and it goes on impact of the sport. And something tells me that Dave's impact just generally on the sport may have been a little greater.
yeah, he's a guy that I think I would have, if I ever had, I never met him. We missed, like our cohorts were too off, but that's a guy that I hear a lot about him through Manning, because Manning actually spent a lot of time with Dave, and he seems like my type of guy.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Ironically, here's some irony. I met him once at Easton High School.
Really?
Yeah, he did like Steve brought him in for like impromptu last minute clinic type of thing. And I've shared this on the podcast a million times, but my dad brought me there. I was like 10 years old. And Dave Schultz showed us a front headlock. And then not only did he show us how to choke the guy unconscious, but how to like wake him up before the referees knew that he was out. Which is like, I'm sitting there looking back at my dad like, and he's like, sounds good. Anyway,
Yeah.
last one. You get a magic wand. You can change one thing about the sport of wrestling, and it changes tomorrow. What would it be?
Dang. Uh, 10 weight classes in the Olympics.
Really? Really? That's a good one. That's a good one. It wasn't too far off. I mean, I think 10 weight classes in the Olympics. I go back and forth on it, truthfully. I really do. I don't know that we need 10 weight classes in college. I don't, I think either 9 or
Well, if you think about how skewed it is now, right? Half of the weight classes in the Olympics are above 189 pounds. You have 86, 97, and 125 kgs in the Olympics. So that's David Taylor and up in the Olympics. Half of them.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
And you put me on the spot there. That's kind of what came to mind. I don't know if I would do anything else, but I know that really drives me crazy that we have 6 weight classes, and of course, there's a lot of guys.
Six is far too little. I agree with you, but I also think of it from a logistics standpoint. Like, and we can get into quickly your stance on whether there should be a dual meet national championship in the NCAA and a dual meet world championship, which is the World Cup. But logistically, do you know? I'm just curious, as an NCAA coach and a high level coach in this sport, do you know what the third or fourth criteria is for winning a dual meet?
I mean, the first one is wins, right? The first one is wins, and then it's falls, and then it's team, and then it's points scored in the match, like actual points scored in the match.
Right.
I don't know what the fourth one is. It's hard to go by past that, isn't it?
It is, but it happens. My point in saying that is, what if we just had 9 weight classes? Like, wouldn't life be all lot? Like, doesn't that seem like the end all? Like, simple fix. And if you want to say 11, fine, it's 11. But it seems like a simple. Yeah, I mean, 220 makes sense to me. 97 to 285 that's a jump, dude.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump.
And it takes kids like, I'm not saying that this kid Angelo that wrestles for us, Angelo Casada, he's really good. Yeah. He's a 215 pounder. He's a 215 pounder. He doesn't know. I'm probably going to be a heavyweight, but he's skinny. He's really skinny. You know, like, I don't know. Like, if you put him next to a Trent Hilger, good luck. You know, like, that's a thick kid, you know? Yeah. So, or Lance, right? Like, I don't think so. You know, so it kind of, give me 11 weight classes. Make things easier on, like, not only can we not and we're as ingratiated into this sport as anyone, can we not name the fourth criteria? How are you going to explain that to the casual fan?
Yeah, we could definitely clean up some stuff for the fans. For all my gripes with freestyle and some of the things, at least their sport, the freestyle is a little easier a little bit more fan friendly. Okay, they stepped out, great. Oh, they exposed their back, great, right? Like, I don't agree with some of them rules, but at least they're clear.
But at least they consider the spectator. They consider them.
Yeah.
It is very obvious that NCAA wrestling does not consider the spectator at all.
No.
All right. That is our time, brother. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Wait. Don't go anywhere before you hit that next button. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.